Chapter 3: A Silent Prison. Mason Cogswell was one of Hartford's best doctors, but he was practicing medicine long before the discovery of vaccines that could prevent many childhood diseases. His daughter Alice came down with a case of spotted fever when she was only 2. Alice recovered, but as sometimes happened with spotted fever, she began to grow deaf. Unable to hear other people speaking, she soon forgot sounds that she had known before her illness. Within 2 years, Alice had lost both her hearing and her speech. The Cogswells tried to help Alice understand what they were saying to her. They tried to guess what she wanted to say to them. But they just didn't know how to communicate with someone who could neither hear nor speak. No one else knew either. By the time Thomas first saw Alice, she had been living in a world of total silence for 5 years. As a child, he had known what it felt like to be left out. But at least he could hear and understand the world around him. When Alice watched the other children playing, their arms waving and their mouths going at full speed, there was no sound to tell her what they were laughing and shouting about. When she sat under a tree to rest, she couldn't hear a gnat whining around her head or leaves getting restless before a storm. A life of just watching wasn't much fun for Alice to look forward to. How lonely she must be. Thomas remembered a young boy he had seen the year before, a deaf child about Alice's age. 2 men were making fun of the child, calling names like dummy and dog. The more scared and helpless the boy looked, the crueler the men were to him. Thomas didn't want this to happen to Alice. He got up from his step and walked slowly toward the little girl, taking care not to startle her. He picked one of the purple violets that sprouted wild in the grass and offered it to Alice. She didn't seem to be at all afraid. Maybe she guessed that Thomas liked children. Maybe she sensed that he too felt different. Thomas was dressed as gentlemen usually were in those days, in a tailored suit and a boxy gray top hat. Just for fun, he took off his hat and put it on Alice's head. She looked at Thomas and waited to see what he would do next. An idea was starting to come to him. I wonder if she could. And before the thought was even finished, he stooped down to pick up a stick. Making sure that Alice was paying attention, Thomas reached out, took the hat, and set it on the ground between them. With the stick, he wrote the letters H-A-T in the dirt next to the hat. Alice let out a high squeal. Thomas supposed it was laughter. She was having fun. That was a good start. Once again, he pointed to the hat on the ground and retraced the letters, H-A-T, with his writing stick. Alice found all this very entertaining. She wanted to play too. While Thomas watched, she fluttered her hands in the air and scoffed her shoes in the dirt, squeaking cheerfully all the while. Thomas went along with Alice's little game of trading tricks. He smiled his approval when she came up with new ones, like throwing a stone or pulling on one of her curls. He was glad that Alice was enjoying herself, but how could he let her know he was trying to teach her something? Thomas lost track of how long he'd been standing there pointing to the hat and scratching H-A-T deeper into the dirt. He was thinking about giving up when all of a sudden, Alice snatched the hat from the ground, plopped it back on her head, and waved her finger at the 3 letters. Thomas would never know exactly what was going on in Alice's mind. All that mattered to him was that she had made a connection between the object on her head and the writing in the dust. Alice had learned her first word. At the end of a long day, Thomas was usually exhausted, but today he felt stronger than ever. He lifted Alice up into his arms and hugged her. The hat flew off her head and fell at his feet. Alice pointed to the hat, then to the letters H-A-T. They both laughed. The door of Alice's silent prison had opened.